Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Raising the New Earth podcast, where in today's episode, Neurotoxicity Unmasked, we delve into the hidden dangers affecting our brain health. I'm your host, Noah Dory, and like I said, today we're going to be uncovering the effects of heavy metals and ultra processed foods on cognitive incline. We are going to explore the latest scientific studies to understand how these toxic elements infiltrate our lives and impact our minds. And more importantly, like I mentioned in every episode, what to do about it. So let's begin. Heavy metals such as lead and mercury, arsenic, cadmium are naturally occurring elements. These are all elements found in the Earth's crust. While some, like iron and zinc, are essential for our biological functions in trace amounts, others are purely toxic and they are everywhere. These metals can enter our bodies, and they do enter our bodies through various pathways. They are contaminated. They'll enter our body through contaminated foods and water, industrial emissions, and even household and skincare products. So once they are inside the body, these heavy metals and the dangers that they hold is the crossing of the blood-brain barrier, which is the critical defense mechanism protecting our brains from harmful substances. Unfortunately, this barrier is not impervious to heavy metals. So let's just dive into some of these metals that contribute to cognitive decline. So the first one is lead. So lead exposure has been extensively studied due to its widespread presence in old paints and pipes and even some cosmetics. A landmark study published in the journal Neurotoxicology revealed that even low levels of lead exposure in adults can lead to significant cognitive deficits. And the researchers found that lead actually disrupts synaptic plasticity, which is essential for learning and memory. And that induces oxidative stress, damaging brain cells over time, which is why sometimes we can't really trace heavy metals, but later in life, because those metals sometimes create a cluster of metals oxidate in our brain, oxidate in our brain, and then create different problems, different cognitive problems that may not be translated and appear as cognitive issues, but this is the source, the heavy metals. The next one, the next metal is the mercury. So mercury in particular possess a severe brain health damage. A study in the New England Journal of Medicine highlighted the cognitive impairments populations consuming mercury contaminated fish. And unfortunately, most fish these days do possess heavy metals. Let's not forget Fukushima and all the pollution that is being spilled into our oceans. And the findings indicated that mercury exposure is linked to deficits in attention, fine motor function, and verbal memory. The neurotoxic effects are attributed to the mercury's ability to interfere with neurotransmitter function and promote neuroinflammation. The next metal is arsenic. So arsenic contamination in drinking water is a global concern, especially in regions with high natural arsenic levels. So, the water that is being sent through our pipes is really dirty. It contains a lot of things other than arsenic. It contains, pharmaceuticals and fluoride and things that I personally do not consume. We use Berkey filter in our household. I'm not affiliated with Berkey, but this is what I chose after extensive research for my family to consume. So just a side note. Now, research published in Environmental Health Perspectives demonstrated that chronic arsenic exposure is associated with higher risk of cognitive impairment and dementia. Arsenic induces neurotoxicity. So by generating reactive oxygen species, ROS, that damages neural cells and that disrupts the signaling pathways critical for cognitive functions. And that's what we see with people that are having a harder time fire up those neurons for proper cognitive functions. The next metal is cadmium. So cadmium is often found in industrial emissions and cigarette smoke. I have a client that works in the automobile field, and what I have noticed, an actual causation, not just correlation, between him being exposed to this industrial emission day in and day out in his work field and him having a severe ADHD. That is my observation and him being my client. So it is known to possess a significant threat to cognitive health. A study in toxicological sciences reported that cadmium exposure is linked to cognitive decline through mechanisms involving, again, this oxidative stress and disruption of calcium signaling in the brain. And those disruptions over time can lead to impaired neural communication and cell death. So often people would ask me, how do heavy metals correlate or contribute to neurodegenerative diseases? So there are doctors, they are married couple by the name Dr. Shirazis, and they are incredible when it comes to research on dementia and Alzheimer and how to live a healthier lifestyle. You can check out their work. Also, Dr. Daniel Amen is amazing, connecting neurological disruptions and nutrition and cleaning one's environment in order to create a homeostasis environment again. So these two doctors I highly, highly recommend you pay attention to, because they are the leading doctors in their field that do connect heavy metals and, again, what to do about it and neurological decline. So the connection between heavy metals and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, and even autism is a growing area of research. So let's look at some of the studies that highlight these links. So when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, research has shown a very, very strong correlation between heavy metal exposures and Alzheimer's diseases. A study published in Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found elevated levels of lead and cadmium in the brains of individuals with Alzheimer's. Now, this is a concern, because these metals contribute to the formation of amyloid plaques and these tau tangles that features this particular disease. Additionally, the exposure to mercury has been linked to oxidative stress and neuroinflammation, like we mentioned before, furthering the Alzheimer's pathology. So it is an important factor when we look at the brains of those with Alzheimer to realize that, yes, heavy metals contribute to that. And there has been some other research showing how cognitive enhancement can be accomplished through keeping a busy brain. So whether you're doing puzzles or just keeping your brain active, even after retirement, has been able to create a better brain, a better neurological firing in the brain for us to keep a more appropriate environment for our brain. So you can look at heavy metals as the only cause, but for me, what I look at one of the many causes, right? And it's a major cause, but it is not the only cause, right? So let's look at dementia. Several studies have associated heavy metal exposure with an increased risk of dementia. A study in the Lancet Neurology highlighted that chronic exposure to lead, mercury, and cadmium is associated with cognitive decline and higher incidence of dementia. Like we said, these metals, what they do, they interrupt the function, the synaptic function, and neuronal communication, which are the key factors to developing dementia. Another disease we need to look at is autism. So a lot of people don't like connecting autism with heavy metals. I do. And emerging research is also exploring the role of heavy metals in the development of autism. A study in environmental research found that children with autism had significantly higher level of lead and mercury in their blood compared to neurotypical children. The study also suggested that these metals may interfere with normal brain development and contribute to the onset of ASD. Another study in neurotoxicology indicated that prenatal exposure to heavy metals could increase the risk of autism in children. Now, for some reason, it is like an unspoken taboo in the States when it comes to metals, because when we consume these ultra processed foods of 19 or 20 or 25 ingredients that most of them we can't even pronounce, we have to look at the cognitive decline that follows. So ultra processed foods are characterized by high content of processed sugar, unhealthy fats, high amounts of salt, and artificial additives such as artificial flavor, and all the dyes that, most of them are banned in Europe, and yet in the US, we still allow them. A study published in the journal Neurology has shown that diets high in ultra-processed foods are associated with an increased risk of cognitive impairment. That study in particular found that individuals that consume the highest amounts of ultra-processed foods had a 28% faster rate of cognitive decline compared to those who consumed the least. These foods can cause inflammation and will cause inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain. Similar, interestingly enough, to the effects of heavy metals. And this inflammation and stress can lead to damage in brain areas involved in learning, memory, and executive functions. So next time you want to take your kid to a breakfast at, I'm not going to mention names, but ultra processed food restaurant drive-through, I would think twice before I do that. A nice fruit bowl of some sort with some raw honey on top, oatmeal with berries sweetened with coconut sugar or raw honey, cereal from organic rice, and we're going to talk about rice, and no colors could be, are all amazing breakfast options. So I would look into that. It takes 5 minutes to do it, to put it together. And if you don't have time, make it at night and just heat it up or plate it in the morning after. So those key findings are inflammation. Ultra-processed foods can promote systemic inflammation, which then affect brain health. Chronic inflammation is a known risk factor for neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia. So yes, nutrition and environmental exposure are very, very, very important if you want to avoid these two diseases. When it comes to oxidative stress, the high levels of refined sugars, and no, I do not consider fruit as refined sugar. I consider fruit as a very, very healing Mother Nature's gift to our wellness and our well-being. But the refined sugars, the white sugars, the processed sugars, and unhealthy fats in ultra-processed foods can increase oxidative stress in the brain, leading to neuronal damage and cognitive decline. So my children, like any children, like occasional chicken nuggets. So even though I don't cook meat, or I should say I didn't used to cook meat in our household, I just didn't like it, I decided to go ahead and make them meatballs and chicken nuggets at home. Why? Because I can control what I put into their diet. And yes, they will occasionally have chicken nuggets outside, but my belief is that it's the 80-20. If 80% of the time they eat homemade food and 20% of the time they eat other foods, then their bodies will be strong enough to balance and process and digest and metabolize the less than desired food. So that's what I do in our household. So I started cooking more meat for my children that crave it, to avoid us needing to buy it with all the list of harmful ingredients that it comes with. And the third key findings is nutrient deficiency. So these foods, they lack the essential nutrients necessary for brain health, such as omega-3 fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, which are crucial for maintaining cognitive function at any age, not just the age of our children, but at any age. And so when we allow that to go in their system day in and day out, just know that you are contributing to this epidemic in the 21st century of being obese and yet lacking the nutrient needing for our cognitive health, which is remarkable if you think about it. When you walk around in the States, you see overweight people, and yet they are starving for nutrition. There's no nutrition in fast food. That's why it's subsidized. There's no nutrition. It's fast food. There's nothing in it. So you're craving for fast food that creates this dopamine hit for more fast food. And this is a vicious cycle. So I would encourage you to make it a pleasurable outing, not an everyday thing. Make it a once a week, a twice a week. And if you do have to go and you work in an office where you don't want to bag your own food or bring it from home or put it in a cooler, then choose less ultra processed foods, right? And you can only control what you can control. But there are ways to create better habits for us and our children, for sure. And it's just going to take a little bit of preparation and a desire to change. So let's talk about the household and personal products to avoid. In order to minimize our exposure to heavy metals and reduce the risk of cognitive decline, it is essential to be aware of common household and personal products that may contain these toxic elements. Some products that I personally watch out for: lead exists in old paints, especially in homes that built before 1978. Plumbing, lead pipes and fixtures can leach lead into drinking water. Consider testing your water or replacing old plumbing. Ceramics and pottery, those that do ceramics and pottery, or even those that have ceramics and pottery in their house, may contain lead in the glaze. Cosmetics, certain lipsticks and traditional cosmetics, such as kohl, may contain lead. All the scented candles. I know that, we love our scented candles, but can we love it less? I use essential oil. And beeswax candles. Those do not contain lead, but the lead in regular scented candles can release lead particles into the air when burned. Mercury, as we know, is found in thermometers and barometers. They should be replaced with mercury-free alternatives. Batteries, if we can avoid using old mercury-containing batteries and opt out for mercury-free options. Light bulbs, some fluorescent light bulbs contain mercury, so handle the disposal of that properly. Seafood, like I said before, our oceans are polluted. Fish like swordfish, shark, king mackerel. I don't do tuna for that reason. Tilefish all have high mercury levels. We got to limit the consumption of those and choose lower mercury fish like salmon or sardines. Skincare products, those lightening creams and anti-aging products may contain mercury. Look at the label. When it comes to arsenic, so pesticides, arsenic-based pesticides are less common now, but can still be found in older products or contaminated soil. pressure treated wood, rice and rice products that I mentioned before. Rice can accumulate arsenic from the soil and water it is grown in. So just rinse the rice thoroughly before cooking, or opt for organic rice, and just vary your diet to reduce exposure. When it comes to bleach, I'm a no bleach, no thank you household. Some industrial bleach, and I would add probably most of them, contain arsenic. So there are plenty, especially here in the States, there are plenty of um, bleach-free household cleaners. I personally do vinegar and water for all of it. So cadmium is found in batteries and jewelry, some cheap jewelry, especially children's jewelry. So be aware, just opt for higher quality options. Sorry, these are dogs. So in paints and pigments, cadmium pigments are used in some artists' paints. So use them in well ventilated areas and wash your hands. Cigarettes, obviously, smoking is a significant source of cadmium exposure, including vaporizers. Perfumes and plugins. I don't use perfumes. I use essential oils. All those plugins that have fragrances may contain cadmium as part of their chemical composition. I don't use plugins in my household. I use like an essential oil vaporizer that releases essential oils. So that's what I do. So let's discuss some effective ways to detoxify the body from heavy metals. What do we do? Assuming that 99.9% of our population have heavy metals, what do we do? So here are a few methods supported by scientific research. First, detox smoothies. So when we incorporate certain foods and supplements into our diet, that can help chelate and eliminate heavy metals from the body. A study published in Journal of Nutrition and Metabolism highlighted the benefits of foods rich in spirulina and chlorophylls, such as cilantro and chlorella, for binding heavy metals and facilitating their exertion. Look into a heavy metal detox smoothie. Anthony William, also known as the medical medium, has a beautiful smoothie with it has wild blueberries. It's got good quality spirulina. Again, spirulina can be contaminated, so I would suggest spirulina by Vimergy. Barley grass juice powder, also from Vimergy. Banana, you can do the base as coconut water, or apple juice or orange juice. You could add some greens to it. Just look it up. Heavy metal detox smoothie, medical medium. Blend all the ingredients until smooth and consume regularly to help support the body's detoxification processes. The other way to combat heavy metals and releasing it out of your bloodstream would be sweating in saunas. So sweating is a natural way to expel toxins from the body. You want to make sure you break a sweat daily. A study in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health found that sweating induced by activities like exercise or using sauna, I use infrared sauna, can effectively reduce levels of arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury in the body. In fact, I attended a seminar, I think it was a webinar, where psychiatrists and MDs talked about a study that was conducted with children with autism and the use of sauna that has seemed to be very successful. So the sauna can effectively reduce the levels of heavy metals in the body, and a regular use of sauna, especially infrared saunas, can enhance detoxification. So I highly recommend it. Another tool I personally use for my clients and myself is ionic foot baths. So ion foot bath is a method delivered to aid in detoxification. It is a device that generates a low level of electric currency to create charged ions in the water. Those charged ions in the water draw out heavy metals through the feet. So you put your feet in, there are some waters, there's a conductor, and you draw your heavy metals from the feet. And I know that a lot of salons and spas now offer that as well, so you can check it out. This is not something you want to do daily. This is something that you want to do biweekly or several times a week. And you want to make sure that you hydrate properly after, because you may feel exhaustion or dizziness. So coconut water is always a good idea. So another one is chelation therapy. Chelation therapy involves the use of chelating agents such as EDTA, which bind to heavy metals and facilitate the excretion. This a study found in clinical toxicology demonstrated the efficacy of chelation therapy in significantly reducing lead and mercury levels in individuals that had high exposure. So preventing heavy metals exposure and reducing the consumption of this ultra-processed foods we discussed are crucial for guarding our cognitive health. We need to make sure that there are stronger regulations that limit industrial emissions and reduce heavy metal contamination in our food and water. It is essential. So policies that aimed at phasing out lead-containing products and reducing mercury emissions can significantly lower exposure level. Public awareness, individual awareness, educating the public, like I'm educating you right now about the sources and the risks of heavy metals and the dangers of ultra-processed foods, and the use of cosmetics, plugins, too much fish and all that, that should lead to making informed choice. Simple actions like using water filters, avoiding certain types of fish, and testing for lead in old homes can reduce exposure. As far as nutritional interventions concerned, some studies suggest that diets that are rich in antioxidants, by the way, wild blueberries are one of the most potent antioxidant fruit available, and certain nutrients can mitigate the effects of heavy metals in ultra-processed foods. For example, research in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition indicated that selenium and vitamin E can counteract mercury toxicity, while a balanced, rich diet in whole foods supports the overall brain health. So in conclusion, as we have uncovered today, the impact of heavy metals is not spoken about at all. And the correlation between ultra-processed foods on cognitive decline, again, seems like a taboo. God forbid we're going to talk about diets and how that assists or harms our well-being. This is a serious public health issue, and it is backed by extensive scientific research. So when you understand the sources, the mechanisms, and the preventive measures and the detoxification method, you can then take a proactive step and advocate for a cleaner, safer environment, right? And it all begins with knowledge. And people say, yes, knowledge is power. Yes, knowledge is power when you act on it. If you just keep your knowledge to yourself and you don't take that step to apply that knowledge that you learned, then it goes to waste. So what are you going to do today to take a proactive step and not contribute to cognitive decline? Okay. So thank you for joining me on Raising the New Earth podcast and Neurotoxicity Unmasked. If you found today's episode enlightening, then please subscribe and share it with your loved ones who care about brain health. Until next time, stay informed and stay healthy. Bye.